You're on the dock with Pastor Troy here on thedock.org. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we're dropping out these amazing podcasts. Thank you for joining us again. And we're all about conversations to propel your faith out of the shallows and into the deep. Got in the chairs here. Got some good ones in the chairs. We'll introduce them to you in a minute. Let's tell us how to find us. I got my favorite team here. I mean, I'm not making the others aren't my favorite, but y'all are my favorite. You know, I love it.
Good ones.
YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Go find us there. Those are our main sites, as well as Google Play, Facebook, Roku, Rumble, Sermonette. And we'd love to hear you chat with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, and now on Getter. When you find us, please hit subscribe, like, notify, punch button, like button, whatever the button is on that thing that says you liked us. And we'd love to hear from you. Chat on it and comment, but mostly share it with family, friends, and others so they can find us as well. And we'd love to have you as a partner on our Patreon site. Go to Patreon, download the app if you'd like, or you can link over through our website and you can find out how to be a sponsor at 3 levels, and there's 4 levels of partnership, and you can find out what those mean. We'd love to talk to you about it. If you have any questions, email us at info@onthedock.org. I'd love to meet with you. And you can go to onthedock.org, our website. It's got an embedded viewer, historical. You can go back and look at our archives, and you can link over to all these things we've talked about. And I've got on my set, to my right, my favorite of all, Mother Beth.
I thought you were going to say your favorite wife.
Well, you are my favorite wife. Yeah. You're my last wife.
Yeah. And
First
and last.
First and last.
Right.
Yeah, because I will die if I do anything else. And across the table, Don. There's Beth's solo picture. I got your solo picture.
Move on.
Okay, move. No, it's a great picture of you. I got to jump over. Got Donna Kroniewski. How you doing, Donna?
I'm good.
Are you doing good? Donna's in here. Donna's doing well. Are you blessed today?
I am.
You're extremely blessed today.
Yes.
But you've had blessings this week in your work life. You've also had sadness in the week in your pet life.
Yes.
So you lost a dear loved cat, and
Yep.
And you're here though.
Yes.
I mean, Donna's tough.
But the cat was 22 to 24 years old. So
a life well lived.
Oh, gosh.
So you're not sad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We got a dog that's lived about 2 years too long, and he's just stumbling around the house. And he's in diapers.
Yeah. The cat was pretty angry.
Yeah.
She wasn't happy.
I offered to come help you take your cat and take him on that journey yesterday, and just take Bo with you. Bo could have gone. See if we get a 2-for-1 special.
I don't know.
I don't know. The vets, I mean, I don't know if they give 2-for-1 specials.
I don't think so. Yeah, no.
I always offer to do a 38 special on the pets when it's time for them to go. But I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm just saying in the old days you took,
Well, teeny tiny animals are kind of more difficult, I think.
Yeah,
to do that with.
In my book, you need smaller caliber, like 25 or 22. And then,
All right.
I'm sorry, ladies.
Move on.
I'm an old farmer. I mean, got that old background in me. Thank you. You love your dog. You take care of it. All right. Lucas is over here. Lucas is in studio with us today. He's always in studio. He's running the board back there. But he's got his own camera, and we got a microphone for him today.
Yep. Just for today.
Just for today. We are working on getting him a permanent microphone, and we're going to work on another guest location spot. We're working on that now, so you'll be seeing us as we grow here at On the Dock. So thank you for joining us. We've got everybody here. We got ready to go into Micah Live Humbly on the Dock Season 2 Digging Deeper Super Series. We've already done Colossians, and this will be our second Digging Deeper in the Word. One of the things that we want to do with On the Dock this year was we want to have our guests in. We want to talk about things going on in the community. We want to expose you to ideas, but we also want to give you some series where you can get deeper in the Word. So as you're traveling, you're driving, you can just let the Word penetrate you. And this is a series we did at Community Faith Church earlier in 2022. If you go back and look around March, April, it kind of pre-led up to Easter. So if you want to watch a full sermon series, you want to see Don and the worship team do amazing worship and that, go to the Community Faith Church website. You can dig back in our archives there at coftv.com. You can also go to YouTube for Community Faith Church. You can go back and watch those full sermons. You're going to get basically the Micah for Dummies here, the shorter version of it. But what we're going to really do is be able to talk more about it and get into it, have some conversation with you. And we hope you'll send us some ideas back too. We'd love for you to use our social media site. Lucas can put those social media things up on the bottom, I think in the lower third. You can always chat back with us, and we'll love to talk to you about the social media content of this. Just ask questions. If you got comments on some of the discussion today, just throw those up, and we would love to talk to you. I think it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, and we're now on Getter. So you can go to those sites and kind of talk back to us, and we would love to interact with you on those episodes. Today we're in the introduction of it, part 1. This is an 8-part series, actually. Micah's a good-sized text. It's got 7 chapters. So we're going to cover the introduction today, and we're going to do the first part of Micah 1 through 16 probably. We might break it up depending on time. We try to keep these episodes, about 40, 45, 50 minutes or so. So we'll see how it goes. And we got some good content for you. So I think we're going to have a good time with it. Hey, as we did on the Colossians series, when we do it on the church here, we have a bumper. We pick up these fancy bumpers. And bumpers are things we use kind of before we start the sermon. So we can kind of have a cut point if we ever want to cut the music off or cut the announcements off and know where the sermon proper is. We put these bumpers in. And so I put the bumper in here because when it's just me, Donna, and Beth, I can start coughing like I am now. Or maybe we just need 30 seconds to go run around the room and shout glory or something like that. I don't know. And so I've got this bumper. So we'll use it one time here, okay? But then we'll use it occasionally if we get in crisis. If we get in crisis or we just want to take a break, we'll use our bumper. Here's our bumper here for the Micah series. Oh, boom, chicka boom. I like it's got that little bit of funky move to it,
It's got a great vibe.
I know. I hated it at first. So I'm going to tell the story about that before we get started. This bumper, when I played it the first time, was just for me horrible. It was garbage. It was just it's not blues. It's not Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. It's not, this 55, 56. Am I 55 or 56? I never know what I'm somewhere in that range. But yeah, it just didn't work for me, and I thought that's too funky, and here, I'll show you. Here's the one, the package from Micah came with more than one option to use. So I was going to go, my first was this one. Woo! It's like angels are singing.
There's nothing wrong with this.
You're going to be 56 this year.
I'm going to be 56?
This year.
See, my 56-year-old likes the script. And it's a little bit of black and white, so it reminds me of my day. I was going to use that. I was set that the other one, our people couldn't tolerate the funky one, that it would be too out of the box. And then I started, honestly.
There's nobody in the box anymore.
I started to call Beth in and go,
I started
to call Beth in and say, Beth, you pick. What do you think? And I just didn't want to really, I knew she would agree with her husband. So I thought, well, that's silly.
You think?
And then I got thinking.
Would you have agreed?
Probably not.
Probably not.
You would have gone with the funky one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, better than that, I thought, what would my son Josh do? Nobody's more hipster than my son Josh. Josh is a cool cat. He owns a coffee shop.
Josh.
WWJD.
Yeah. So I thought, what would Josh do? I thought, Josh would go for the hip one. And I thought, but he's not here. So since he's not here, Dad will do what he wants to do. And so I was ready to go up until the Sunday morning. I literally had the whole sermon series in Lucas's cart to put into the sanctuary. I had the funky old man cursive version of Micah there. What? Like angelic choir. Yeah, I had it ready to go. And then I asked myself, wonder what Lucas would like.
Oh.
And I thought, well, this is a no-brainer.
WWLD.
Yeah. And I thought Lucas would think I'm cooler if I did the modern one. And then I thought, okay, Josh and Lucas will think I'm cool if I do this.
Right.
And so I switched it at like 8 o'clock that morning. And then I thought, I'll just ask the congregation. So we took a poll of our congregation. It was 98% with the exception of one kid. I couldn't believe one kid picked it. I think it was Jesse Dean. Jesse Dean's like, I like the old school one.
And Daryl.
Daryl's an old cowboy. And Jesse, I thought Jesse would be hip. Jesse's like an old soul. I mean, Jesse's kind of got my taste.
I think he was confused.
I think he was confused. I think he was sitting next to a couple of cute girls in the church, and he wanted to show them he had his own identity. Yeah. So, but 98% of our church picked the cool one, and I thought I was cool after all. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to be doing Micah Live Humbly.
You went against your nature.
I went against my. It's one of the few times I've done it in years,
and it was successful.
It was very successful. I'm very proud.
Hey, listen, there's been several times that God has made me go against my nature.
Yeah.
So there's a lesson in there. There's a lesson in there.
There you go.
So
That's
guys,
one of God's favorite things to do.
yeah, I do have the old one here. We may have to play it occasionally just to pacify me, but I got to where I really like the new one, so I can jam on it.
awesome.
I just didn't have that. I don't have that. When you do like I'm like like this, like riding horse. But this one you got to kind of you got to kind of do.
Lo-fi.
You got to. See, Donna can do it because she's got skill.
I got that snaky neck.
She's got you got that.
Ladies can do that.
I can't do the.
We're like, I don't think so.
This is more of a jiggy jag song versus a dun 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 dun. So, all right, Micah. This has nothing to do with it, but I want to tell you what we go through to produce this show for you. I'm going to go with the funky, cool one. Let us know on our social media which one of those you like. Did you like the old or the new? We want to see if the on the dock. Maybe you're
Hands
more.
down.
Maybe on the dock crowd's more with me, and you want to go with the old school.
I doubt that.
And let's hear from you. Maybe we'll change it midway through. I do have it in the package, so we can play it. Hey, let's get into the text here. We're in Micah. If you're driving your car, don't stop driving. I'm going to read to you, but we're going to read to you the text just so you have it heard once, and then we'll start breaking it down a little bit, and these ladies can get in. Lucas can jump in anytime, but we'll get the scripture read to you right now from Micah chapter 1 verses 1 through 16. We're from the New Living Translation version of the Bible. So let me get this to you. The Lord gave this message to Micah of Morseth during the years when Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah were kings of Judah. The vision he saw concerned both Samaria and Jerusalem. Attention, let all the people of the world listen. Let the earth and the earth in it hear. The sovereign Lord is making accusations against you. The Lord speaks from his holy temple. Look, the Lord is coming. He leaves his throne in heaven and tramples the heights of the earth. The mountains melt beneath his feet and flow into the valleys like wax in a fire, like water pouring down a hill. And why is this happening? Because of the rebellion of Israel. Yes, the sins of the whole nation. Who is to blame for Israel's rebellion? Samaria, its capital. Where is the center of idolatry in Judah? In Jerusalem, its capital. So I, the Lord, will make the city of Samaria a heap of ruins. Her streets will be plowed up for planting vineyards. I will roll the stones of her walls into the valley below, exposing her foundations. All her carved images will be smashed. All her sacred treasures will be burned. These things were bought with the money earned by her prostitution, and they will now be carried away to pay prostitutes everywhere. Therefore, I will mourn and lament. I will walk around barefoot and naked. I will howl like a jackal and moan like an owl. For my people's wounds is too deep to heal. It has reached into Judah, even to the gates of Jerusalem. Don't tell our enemies in Gath. Don't weep at all, you people in Beth Leprah, but roll in the dust to show your despair. You people in Sapphira, go ask captives into Israel, naked and ashamed. The people of Zanan dare not come outside the walls. The people of Beth Ezel mourn, for their house has no support. The people of Marath anxiously wait for relief, but only bitterness awaits them. As the Lord's judgment reaches even to the gates of Jerusalem. Harness your chariots' horses and flee, you people of Lachish. You were the first city in Judah to follow Israel in her rebellion, and you led Jerusalem into sin. Send farewell gifts to Morseth Gath. There is no hope of saving it. And the town of Aksib has deceived the king of Israel. O people of Morseth, I will bring a conqueror to capture your town, and the leaders of Israel will go to Adullam. O people of Judah, shave your heads in sorrow, for the children you love will be snatched away. Make yourselves as bald as a vulture, for your little ones will be exiled to distant lands. Guys, I'm just telling you, when you have to read that on a Sunday, that's one of the readings. We do a lot of our readings here at the Community Faith Church. We do them kind of together with one voice. It's a long reading, which we do long readings. But that one's got, as I tell people, that's got lots of name challenges. Mm-hmm. That may be one of the hardest ones you have to read on a Sunday. You have to give people freedom to do milli vanilli on those names because those are tough. But this is the start of Micah. It's a 7 chapters. That was chapter 1. We're going to kind of break that down here a little bit and help you understand Micah. Micah is all about the book of Micah itself is all about God trying to get the attention of his people and bring forth a series of corrections. God wants our love more than anything. But he expects that love be manifested, not just in love to him, but in how we treat each other, how we respect one another, and that it should be paralleled both with our reflection of it toward him and how we live that out in the world around us. And when we fail to do that, he will correct us. And so what we're going to see in Micah is God bringing 3 sets in 3 cycles. Let me show this chart here. He's going to bring 3 cycles of prophecy. Each one of them are basically the same charge. He just does it in a book. When the Bible says, like holy, 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 or things in threes, that means it's a decree of God. So the book of Micah is a holy prophetic decree given in 3 judgments, along with 3, I want to call these rebukes, but also it comes with 3 kernels of promise of hope. And so while they're very, very tough cycles of rebuke, and we just read the first cycle, how he just is saying both Israel and Judah, we have split nations at this time. After David, then we have Solomon, and Solomon dies, and his sons, one son takes part of it, and the others begin to split off, and you have a northern and southern Judah. Things are never good after that. So when we get into Micah's time, it's a split kingdom. There's Judah and Benjamin that represent the kings of Judah, and then the rest of the tribes represent Israel. Their base was in Samaria. The base of Judah was in Jerusalem. So that's why he speaks against Samaria and he speaks against Jerusalem. And this first cycle is his charge, his judgment, what he's found wrong. And he just the prophet is speaking on behalf of God, bringing a case to the people of what all they have done. And he is ready to basically charge them and tell them what he's going to do. And we're going to find out he does all this. At the same time, he gives a chance for the people that are listening that want to modify their heart or maintain there are some people that will live right, not many, we're told, but he gives people a chance to hold the line, knowing if they hold the line, God will make a way where there seems to be no way. Pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So Micah is tough. Now Micah's written way back in the old times. It goes way back early in the period of Kings. So we're talking about 2,800 years from now, 3,000 years ago, very long time ago. But Micah could easily be written and spoken to us today. It could be God's judgment on our community. It could literally be God's judgment on Southern Illinois right now. We've got things going on right now in Southern Illinois that we've watched over the last few days that are just abominations to God that are happening here. And it could be God saying, I've had enough of you guys. I've had enough of the United States. I've had enough of the church here today. You've just dropped the ball. You've failed to honor me. And here's what's going to happen. But for those of you that maintain, here's your hope. Micah is as relevant, I think, to us now as probably any book in the Bible is. And I know it's Old Testament. I know it's a minor prophet. But I think it really can speak to us today and help us.
Well, rebellion has been around since the garden, so
absolutely
that hasn't gone away.
It hasn't changed at all. But the circumstances are, there's so much of it today that is parallel. You don't even have to, the prostitution he talks about here is spiritual prostitution. You've caved, you've connived, you've succumbed to the worldly influences, and you basically are calling yourselves Christians on Sunday, but you're offering all these worldly sacrifices the rest of your week. And so you're really playing the prostitute. You're not really trusting in the command of God. And I see that over and over. It's very prevalent. Let's take a look at this. In this first part, we take a look at how God's responsibility is. He's very serious because he's wanting to call God's people. He's wanting to call them to accountability. So let's take a look at this first little section here, if I can, where the judgment is coming. It says, in verse 2, he says, "Attention, let all the people of the world listen." So it's not just the Christians there in Jerusalem and Samaria, but he's speaking to us, and you could honestly say he's speaking to us even today, because all the principles of God they've yet to change, and there's going to be a lot of things happen bad here. Micah lives through Jotham and Ahaz and Hezekiah, and there were a lot of bad times in those kings. Hezekiah had a little bit of a renaissance, but so we're not sure exactly when this was written, but he lived during this time. But Ahaz was one of the worst kings, and things were very bad. And he tells everybody to listen to what's happening. And then the second part, he explains why it's happening. Verse 5, he says, because of the rebellion of Israel. When we rebel against God, God is going to hold us accountable and then bring correction. And he says, yes, the sins of the whole nation. And who is to blame for Israel's rebellion? Well, the leaders of its capital city, which is Samaria. But he doesn't just blame the nation that split away. But at this time, even the Judah kings were not living right. So he also holds a charge against Judah. and the capital there is Jerusalem. And so basically he's saying it will lie. Samaria will be a heap of ruins. And he says later on that Jerusalem will be, messed with as well and destroyed. And look at this, verse 9, for my people's wounds are too deep. They're too deep to heal. It has reached even to Judah, even to the gates. So he's saying what the people have done, the rebellion, the way they're living has impacted not just one group or this group, it's influencing the whole region. And honestly, he says it affects how the whole world is impacted. And you can kind of see that today. The world's very small. What's going on here has impacted that. We're right now in Southern Illinois. They're the big battle we have going on this week, and this will date this a little bit, but they're looking at bringing an abortion clinic here to Carbondale. And the name of the clinic is the Memphis Reproductive Rights Women's Clinic or whatever, health clinic. And you think about that, and I'm from Memphis. Memphis is, my hometown is technically not Memphis, but I grew up most of my life in Memphis, so I consider myself a Memphis boy. Tennessee stood up and outlawed such things. So they kind of really restricted all this, and they don't have those kind of facilities. And so the people stood up there and said, we don't want to have this in our region. We don't want God standing against us. And so the company that owns this has had to go, not just here, they can't go to Kentucky because they've already done it. They can't go to Missouri because they're not supportive of it either. They're going to go 3.5 hours and build a clinic for people for Tennessee to come up here to sacrifice the life of an unborn child. And there's all kinds of dynamic reasons that would cause a woman to be in that situation. And I'm not being unsympathetic to any of those. Those all need to be dealt with. But the concept that's being entertained now in Southern Illinois, that we would open a center up here when so many rejected that's what's happening here. They were rejecting what God said about how you treat innocents, how you do the right things, how you handle things, and he brought judgment. You can see that now in our world where we're just lining up with different rules and different guidelines, and this is okay here and this is permissible there. And I realize that there's a separation in secular and worldly and religious society, but in this time there was none. And really, in reality, there isn't really either when the culture says it doesn't. So the reason we've had this separation of what people go, well, that's what the religious people believe, and this is what secular people believe, is because God has become not consequential to all of our people. When God's consequential to all our people don't think like that. They don't think, well, what happens on Monday through Saturday is different from the rules that happen on Sunday. What happens when you have people of godly conscience running things, they look at godly principles and morals 24/7, 365. But we're now in a time where the Christian perspective is very minor. And now we were called in the meeting last night. I wish I had the video clip of this, but those of us that subscribe to a pro-life view were compared to we were called Al-Qaeda last night. And pastors that promote a pro-life agenda were called, what was the word, Beth? Grifters. So we're at a stage now where we have got a very split off relationship with God. And the things that we would call good, the world calls, the things we call bad, the world calls okay. And the things that we call bad, the world thinks that we're ridiculous. And so Micah was in a time like that where people had really turned its back on the things of God, and God was bringing judgment. And I sit here today thinking, how far do we go before God brings a Micah to us? So I just want to point it out that.
Can you go back to the one scripture about how the wounds are too?
Yeah, that's good. Right here, verse 9, chapter 1, for my people's wound is too deep to heal.
Yeah, can you read that again? For
my people's wound is too deep to heal. It has reached into Judah, even to the gates of Jerusalem.
What do you think that's?
I just think what's happening to people, what's happening to people's lives are so deep that almost the only way to do it is to do a purge or a reset or destruction. And to us, that's barbaric. But a reset is when, it'd be like me wiping my hard drive. Say, I've got such a bad virus in my computer. The guy goes, well, we're just going to wipe your hard drive and start over. God is saying things are so bad, it's almost Sodom and Gomorrah, like, I need to wipe it out. It's almost like I need to wipe everybody out and like with the flood, and I need to start over. Jerusalem's so bad, Samaria is so bad, I'm going to let them be carried away and destroyed, and at some point in time, I'll bring a remnant back and we'll rebuild it.
Because even the foundation
is rotten. Even the foundation is rotten. And we know that in the Bible, the cornerstone of Jesus Christ will always be solid. So if everything else is bad, we can get back down to Christ, and on Christ alone we can stand. and you build back out. I've been saying that for years to people. When you have problems and problems in your faith, strip it back down to where you found Christ and build back up. Because people will get knowing Christ and go, well, I know Christ, but then I've decided it's okay if you do this and this and this. God won't mind. Yeah, God will mind. God wrote in his Bible, don't do that or don't do this or do this and do that. And people begin to...
God knows there's a consequence to those things. It's not just because he doesn't want us to do those things.
Exactly.
It's because he knows the consequence.
Yeah, he knows definitely the consequences of this.
And not his consequence. Not just his consequence. He knows what the natural consequences are of those behaviors.
Not just because he said, but sometimes it's just because he says.
Yes.
Okay, because he's testing whether we'll be obedient. And sometimes he's made laws and reasons because he knows what it can harm us physically.
Right.
Spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Just the weight of that.
Right.
Right now we're sitting in society right now, and we're just through COVID, and the media's cranked up on the monkeypox. Monkeypox is being talked about all over. Monkeypox there's cases of it here and there, but you go look and see how monkeypox is spread. How does monkeypox spread? It's through direct bloodlet drop contact, and it's primarily spread between sexual contact between men. 95% of the cases. You can do enough drop. It can be spread other ways, but 95% of monkeypox is a sexually transmitted disease. And we're being told to prepare for it being the next COVID. Number one,
that's not possible.
It's not possible. But that's how that disease is spread. And God told us not to do such things. And it wasn't just because he didn't want that activity. Maybe he just doesn't want that activity because it's not what he ordained. But it's also because it also carries with it consequences biologically that can be dangerous.
Right.
And it's just, so we look at these things and we go, well, God's archaic and he's barbaric and, love is love. But God sometimes just has our best interest in mind.
Right.
And we have to decide whether we're going to give him first place or second place or third place, and whether we're going to give him obedience, over our will. And that has to do with free will and our decision. Now, interesting in this text, the people had been going pretty wild. Let's take a look at a guy named Thomas Edward McComiskey. He's a guy that wrote in the Expositor's Bible, and he says about this Daniel Malachi. This is in Malachi. He's got a book on Daniel Malachi, but this is on. He talks about Micah. He says, in particular, my infamous God through Micah, singled out Jerusalem not only because of the corruption of its leaders, but also because of its future glory. Everybody in this room knows how important Jerusalem is in God's plan. It's the center, but also because of its future glory, a central motive in the prophetic theology of hope. And so basically what he's saying is he's going to hold Samaria accountable. He's going to hold Jerusalem accountable. He's going to reset it because he needs Jerusalem to be holy, because there'll be a time where that city has to shine. And he's going to bring correction because God, despite the sin, he's going to give people a chance by bringing a remnant that'll come forth and offer hope. So Micah is just telling you there's problems, but then God's gonna have to fix this thing. There's another good theologian, Samuel Schultz. He writes in the Old Testament by Exploring the Old Testament. It's a book out by Crossway. He says Micah seems to use a play on words with the city names that sound like the words of impending outcome of each. And so when I was reading all those different hard names, when you heard me read each of the different city names, they were very difficult. Like Gath, the word Gath means to tell. Aphra means dust. Akshib means to deceive. Marshath means to conquer. So when when I was reading that, there was a message inside the message to the Hebrews, and they would have understood as you kind of went through this that don't tell our enemies in Gath, don't weep at all. The word Gath means tell. And you people in Beth Lepra, it says roll in the dust to show your despair. You people in Beth Lepra, that's the city of dust. So the city was already a city. So God was bringing judgment in and making comments about places because maybe that's what they were already in. They were already being prescribed to that. I love this. What Micah does here for us is he does amazing stuff here. Let me show this in Micah chapter 1, verse 10. Don't tell our enemies in Gath. You see that? That's the tell. Your people in Bethlehem, the dust. You people in Shaphrah go as exiles into exile, naked and ashamed. And I didn't know if I showed you this or not, but I don't think I gave you. Shaphrah has one, and I didn't pull it out. People of Zanan dare not to come outside the walls. The people of Beth Ezel, that's called the neighbor's house. So mourn, for their house has no support. So how do you go to your neighbor's house if it has no support? So this is written just amazingly. So God not only gives a prophecy, but he gives a prophecy by naming the towns and showing what's happened to them and what their fate is based on what's already occurring. And he's basically saying they're living out their namesake. The people of Marath, like it's the word Marath would mean bitter, anxiously await for relief, but they only have bitterness. So they're living into that. I guess my question will be, will Carbondale become a bitter name? Will it become a name of dust? Will the United States be less than what it is as a great nation someday because we failed to? We think of it now as a place where people come for freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom to kind of grow into their own. Well, someday, will it have a context like this in some future prophecy that God gives? I hope not. I mean, our prayer is not. Our prayer is that God would bless us. The eventual outcome of all of this that we read in Micah 1 is that there'll be a destruction. There'll be an accountability. And it cannot be avoided. He's basically telling the prophet, this is going to happen.
Right, because how can God bless a nation that refuses to?
And here we're talking about multiple nations. It's multiple cities, multiple nations. He's going to bring judgment on. Why would we think that he's going to avoid ours? When we come and we stand before God for what we've done in our day, Micah is given to us so we don't repeat Micah. Micah is given to us so that we can do a different way. And what makes me concerned is we have Micah, but we seem to be walking down Micah's path.
Right.
You'd like to think we as a Christian nation would be smarter, but are we really a Christian nation? Are we just a Christian nation on Sunday for a few people that are extremists? It's amazing. The cities here were seemingly wealthy. They were successful that we're talking about here, but only as a result of doing what was wrong. And when you do what's wrong, the punishment of God ultimately is unavoidable. And it's so true that oftentimes our accomplishments can end up being the source of our downfalls. Sometimes we can be so successful that we think we did it ourselves, that we didn't need God, that we were smarter than him. And next thing you know, we've turned our back on God. Mm-hmm. So I guess one of my early questions would be for us is, what will be ours? What will be our source as a nation, as a community, as Illinois, as Southern Illinois, as a world? What will be our maybe our accomplishment that's caused our downfall? You know, is it the ability to be able to take life so easy? We've learned how to take life with a pill. You know, we've learned you don't even need the clinic anymore. Just a prescription, can take care of this, and will our downfall be our wisdom, that we used it for harm rather than good, instead of figuring out how to use the wisdom to end poverty or to end murder or to end a lot of things. We've used it to end life. And
disease.
The
disease that could have been cured by now if those things had been directed in the right way.
I heard an argument last night, and I'm not trying to be controversial on this. We don't try to do that on the doc. But I heard one of the arguments at you need to go watch it. It would be today's what? What is
25th.
Today? The 25th of May. So if you go back, I'm dating the episode, so I'm sorry about that. But we're taping this a little bit earlier for season 2. But if you go back and look at the city council meeting from yesterday, the 24th. There's one person that says, we need to allow reproductive abortion because African Americans don't have access to it, and they have 4 times to 6 times, maybe even 7 times likely in our region to have maternal deaths as a result of births. So the women here, the African American women, need access to abortion to save their lives. And I'm thinking, that's a tragic thing. I mean, if there are really, because of lack of good OBGYN care, lack of maternal care, lack of prenatal care, if there are really such extraordinary high 5, 6, 700% death increases between Black women, African American women having their children and white women having their children here in Southern Illinois, then that is a health crisis. We need to be looking at, why are these women not getting the care they need? And what came across in the meeting is one woman got up and shared, I'm going to medical school to be a doctor, but the reason we need to allow this clinic to be here is because nobody wants to be an OBGYN because of these controversial subjects. They don't want to be involved with it. They don't want to have to do it. They don't want to have to manage this care. So we'll need these special clinics to be able to handle this special stuff because this will be the only way African American women can get this need met. And I'm sitting here thinking, another person gets up, another African American says, they don't actually speak for the whole African American community, even though they said they did. I also speak for the black community, and I'm here to tell you that yes, the death rates are 4 or 5 times higher. This person was from the New York area. In New York, statistically, it's been proven for black children. But has anybody thought to think, we're all talking about the fact that you're just saying there are no black caregivers in Southern Illinois. There's almost nobody to be able to be a medical caregiver to help these women that they trust. But the rate of abortion amongst African Americans is almost 4 to 5 times higher. Wouldn't that mean we're aborting than the rate of white kids? Wouldn't that mean that every child aborted is one child that could have been a doctor, that could have been? You're actually eradicating your own solution. Mm-hmm. I know it's a complex thought here, but they're arguing that they need to have access to it because of the death. But what if it's in the children that are being killed that we're losing the healers and losing the people that will create solution and creating the economic strength? Because if you're keeping that population down, that population can never grow into its own community and its own share of the nation. In other words, it's holding it back. And so I think in this case, the abortion doesn't help that solution. I think the problem is a different problem, and it needs to be addressed with a different answer. And so people were making rationales because of this orange problem here. We need to kill the apple. And I'm thinking, man, maybe in some of these children we're losing are the answers for tomorrow. And we've got to be careful when we take God's providence and we take away people's future of hope. We also take away how God may have been bringing change, and we reap what we sow. And so to me, when we start being providential and sovereign over God and over life, we begin to take great risks. So what will ours be? What will our arrogance cause us? I mean, it's a complex subject, so I don't know what you ladies think or Lucas thinks, but you have to listen to what they were saying yesterday. They were making some very obtuse arguments on valid issues, but they had nothing to do with reproductive rights.
It wasn't the answer.
It wasn't the answer.
Line up.
The answer was better care.
So to me, it's a lack of vision.
Absolutely.
For the world that we live in and a lack of hope.
And nowhere in the process was there anybody that said anything about lack of personal responsibility. Because there are unwanted pregnancies, and there's a way to stop unwanted pregnancies.
Right.
Don't do unwanted things that cause pregnancies. And that's a whole nother discussion on that. Everybody has that. We've all dealt with that. But in the bottom line is we have to be responsible for our actions before God.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I had told you the other day about a political ad. Anyway, one of the statements they made was that this candidate, he's gone too far in his support of the unborn.
How can sorry?
How
can you go too far?
In his support of the unborn.
He's gone too far.
But just the fact that they used the word the unborn.
Yeah.
And they didn't say anything about fetus or crisis pregnancies or he's gone too far in his support of the unborn. Even they know. Even the side that's for it is acknowledging these are babies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's life.
Yeah, we've got a real and all
and they're
this
saying and we still stand by our stance.
Well, and last night we were called, only 8% of the people don't support the idea of abortion. You people are narrow-minded. You're bigots. Your pastors are grifters. You people should be Al-Qaeda. You're worse than Afghanistan Muslims. This is by a sitting councilman for Carbondale. Alous is his name, Loos. He made this. He went on a rant for 20 minutes and did nothing but abuse Christians that have a biblical worldview. It was very abusive. It was the most abusive I've ever seen anybody sitting. I've never seen anybody in a Congress chair or Senate chair be that hateful.
Yeah.
I've never seen it happen right in Carbondale. So, and let me say to you, nobody else was that spewed of venom from the platform, but there were others that shared the sentiment, but they were able to say it nicer.
Right.
And it just tells you, Micah had trouble. In the time of Micah, their society was falling apart. God held them accountable. Micah could be speaking to us in a time that we need to turn the tide here, or God's going to hold us accountable at some point in time. Let me say this. This charge in Micah 1 is against the people in general. And the Hebrew people were being led by people, by leaders of that day, and whose motives were not acceptable to God. And so my question for us is, could this be said of our leaders today? Do we have leaders today that are not standing for God's motives and not representing God's morals right? And as such, are they putting us in jeopardy? Are we putting ourselves in jeopardy? And could we have leaders today, second question, that have less than godly motives? Well, I mean, last night when I watched that, it was, not anti-godly. He wasn't ungodly. He wasn't atheistic. He was anti-godly. Mm-hmm. It was literally it made fun of us. And so we have to decide if that's going to be the future of a nation who puts their trust in God, then at some point in time, you're no longer a nation that puts your trust in God. Mm-hmm. And you're standing right there where Micah is, prophesying to a broken Samaria, a broken Jerusalem, and all those other nations, he said. And what he says is God's judgment is just and true. It's coming. Mm-hmm. And so it's a harsh thing to say, but we live in what I want to say is a broken and broken world. And when we did this study of Micah, I had this concept that I want to try to get across here in our last few minutes. We don't have much time left, but I want to get this across. They were letting the people of Micah's time, Israel and Judah, they were letting all kinds of false beliefs into their DNA. The Jews, the Hebrews had a biblical model to follow, but they weren't following it because the reason they weren't following it was they had, instead of doing what Moses was told by God and Joshua was told by God, get rid of those people from among my holy land, put out the Canaanite, the 7 different tribes of the Canaanite people, get them out, don't intermarry with them, don't make treaties with them, get rid of these people. They weren't able to do it. They were able to do it, but they would never work together to do it. So as a result, think about this, they actually let them stay. And now we're hundreds of years later, and the ones they let stay have now intermarried with all of the Jews, the Hebrews. The society is mingled with not just the Hebrew people, but also people that are from all these other cultures, religious perspectives outside the Lord God Almighty. And what's crazy about this is you find that now the world is in peril. God is saying, I'm going to bring my judgment. Samaria is going to fall. Jerusalem's going to fall. Why? Because you've let that take over. And it's the combination. I want to call this synchronizing. And we're going to talk about this a lot throughout this. It's where you fuse two different forms of world in together. You've got God's people and their command. You've got the world and all these other religions. And you all of a sudden start getting this hybridized, let me call it for that day. For their day, it would have been their modernized culture. Neither Hebrew nor Canaanite, but you get wholly other. I think we have a lot of that going on today. We were a nation founded by Christ. We were pilgrims coming to worship. This was a nation up until even the 1950s. Nobody would argue that this was a Christian nation. In God we trust. The 10 Commandments were on every courtroom wall. They were taught in the schools. Prayer happened in schools. And then in 1950s and 60s, that began to back off, and 70s more. And now, they're firing football coaches that would have a pregame prayer with their players. Just firing them. And used to be, the students could lead prayer. Well, now they're not even letting the students lead prayer. They're like,
and it's not going to be long before the students don't even remember what it was our country was founded on,
or how to pray, what it's about.
Yeah, they've been working really hard at undermining our
rewrite history, rewrite the history.
Right.
What this is called is synchronizing. When you take the kind of the both worlds and you fuse it together, you kind of get this fusion kind of thing. And I think largely that's kind of where we are today. They had a fusion culture there, and as a result of that fusion culture, God wasn't happy. God wanted them to stay faithful. He wanted to stay available and teachable by him, and they had really kind of lost that. Thomas Micah that we talked about earlier, he says, it is as if Micah saw in the fall of each town and the eventual captivity of the two kingdoms, because they would both fall, one to the Syrians, other to the Babylonians, but they would both fall. He saw the captivity of the two kingdoms as the final dissolution of the Davidic monarchy. David's reign would be taken down. Now we know a king of David will rule forever, and that's Jesus. Jesus would come back and reestablish that. So there is hope on the horizon. And we know that David's line stayed there through the line of Judah. Some were good, some were bad, but God honored his promise the best that he could, but the people rejected God all that they could, to the point that God couldn't stand it. So instead of God blessing the nations, he basically just protected a few kernels of seed to plant for later. I mean, isn't that crazy? It's just really crazy what he did. So do you guys think, do you see in any way in which we're seeing a synchronization of Christianity today to secular human inclusive philosophies today, where we're being changed? The DNA of America is being rewritten. In a Micah type form. I think it's happening right now. The Canaanites of today are mixing with Christianity, and there's something wholly other coming out.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's infected every part of our lives. I mean, it's not just one thing. It's not just abortion. It's infected every area of our lives.
I mean, everywhere. It's every area. I just look at my head and go, oh my. Right. And what I saw when I was in seminary, when I went to seminary in 1991 and 92 at Emory, the people that are leading the charge of this other fusion world that's anti-Christ, that's taken some Christian concepts, married it to some pagan philosophy, and now you have this wholly other kind of antithetical theology born today. These were students that I went to school with that would sit out as student protesters protesting certain actions. And now they're the bishops of the church. They're leading the church. The extremists of my seminary days are now the in vogue. And these students that were causing this thought process sat on the steps, interrupted things. They boycotted things. They caused problems. And now today they see me as the problem. I'm the boycotter. I'm sitting on the steps. I'm the Al-Qaeda. It is completely flipped in my ministry career of 33 years, right, Beth? Yeah. 32, 33 years. It's flipped so that I am now Al-Qaeda.
Right.
We're on the out. Christianity that's evangelical, that has the Bible at its center, is now considered on the outside. It's the intolerable.
Well, you can expect moral decay in the world, but it's infiltrating into Christian faiths or faiths that have been Christian historically, and so now it's diluting the DNA of the Christian church, the church, big C, the church. And so that's why you've got a split within that Christian realm of who is a more liberal church that says they're a Christian church, and who is more evangelical and more conservative with their values and more Bible-based.
That's a great. I gave an example when we preached the message that if Christianity is a horse, and it's the thoroughbred of faith, then you get over here, you get a donkey, and let's call that the world religion, the other things, the stubborn donkey. You know, God says, my people that are not my special people, the other people will be stubborn like mules, or like donkeys. They'll have kind of a whole different paradigm. When you take a whole different paradigm like a donkey and you mate it with a horse, you get a mule. You get a mule. And if you know anything about mating a donkey with a horse, you get a mule. A mule is sterile. It's unreproductive. It's an animal that can live, but it's an animal that cannot thrive. It cannot reproduce. It cannot have life going on. And right now, Christianity has been abducted by donkeys, and we're putting out mules, and you do not see a thriving of the church at all. Because those churches born out of that marriage are incestuous. Their DNA is not right. And though it can function for a season, it can't flourish with the blessing of God.
Right. No.
It just can't do it.
God won't bless it.
Yeah,
he won't do it. And I think we see a lot of warning signs. God is sending us to tell us to live humbly, that we need to listen. I know we've talked about some controversial things. I'm not wanting to beat anybody up. I do think people have the freedom to choose these things. You know, God didn't say you have to be Christian. He just tells the Christians to be Christian. Don't conform yourself to the world. Stand outside it. Remember, we're ambassadors. We're not supposed to cave and live like them. We're supposed to be in the world, but not of it. We're supposed to be ambassadors of the kingdom of God. So we can't stop people from choosing to do secular worldly things. And if the world has gone secular, it's part of our fault. We surrendered it. But he says to them, I'm going to wipe this out. But the only people, we'll find this out in the next episode, that are going to survive will be the remnant that are faithful. He's telling the Christians to maintain. And how do we do that? We have to live humbly. We have to live humbly before the Lord and trust God to help us through that. I think I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to come back in the second episode. I've got some video in the second episode that's going to be so good. You do not want to miss part 2 of our Micah series, because I'm going to show you a video that just shows you how twisted and upside down our world is today, and how the mentality we could be in Micah. And I've got a wonderful illustration I'm going to show you that of how we can take something that was meant to be very positive, encouraging, and how quickly we can socialize it, synchronize it, and turn it into a perversion. And I'm going to do this on something that's totally, it's not a controversial subject. Well, maybe it is. It's your iPhone. So we're going to talk about your iPhone when you come back, and I'm going to show you how we can just twist philosophy real quick, and it's really a sad thing, and we'll get to that. But I hope you've been enjoying this. I know the first one, Micah's tough. Micah's tough. The first one, because he's just torching us. He says, this is my charge. But I want to promise you, part 2 is the second part of cycle 1. And he's going to tell us that there is a hope. And I want to tell you what the hope is. And we're going to keep going in this Micah series. It's a great series. I hope you'll continue to join us with that. It's like I said, it's just going to be excellent. The key is that you are faithful to Jesus Christ, is that you ground yourself and root yourself in. And we can all get caught up in the worldly things and get pulled into things. What you need to do is just repent of those things that are not of God and put yourself back on the right path. If you've been going the wrong direction, turn it around and head toward God. All of us have sinned. Here, I'll put the scripture up. All have sinned, all have fallen short of the glory of God. We all make mistakes. And God loves us despite the fact that we're sinners. And all we have to do is look to the cross. And when we look to the cross, it will naturally make us turn around. Where we were going is toward death, but we can go to eternal life. That's Romans 6:23. And all we have to do is walk toward the door where he's knocking. That's Jesus. Jesus is wanting all of us to trust him. I know that sounds old-fashioned. I know that sounds so crazy, but for every nation and every people that trusted in God, he has blessed them. And we need to get back on that, and we're all about that here at On the Dock. So we hope we've encouraged you today. I know it's a tough text, but we are going to come back in part 2, Micah chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. I'm going to start off with a killer video on it, and I'm going to show you how our society can take an incredible, spiritually gifted song and they can turn it into a bunch of commercial, synchronized fusion. Girls, you're going to love this. Lucas is going to love it. We'll see you when we get back to this. Hey, you can continue to watch us at onthedock.org, info at onthedock.org, and you can find us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, as well as Google Play, Facebook, Roku, Rumble, and SermonNet. We'd love to hear from you. Go to those platforms, check it out, and we want to hear your questions. We would love to hear your comments. Donna checks that social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, get her. Just reach out to her, let her have it. She'd be love to be in dialogue on behalf of our team with you about those subjects. And we encourage you, go back if you can, go to the archives for Carbondale City Council, May 24th, 2022. Go listen to that presentation and go listen to some of those arguments and wait till Councilman Luce presents his version of just who he thinks Christians are that believe in the Bible. And you're going to be shocked that this is somebody speaking in the United States of America, a nation founded on God. And so when you get to those platforms, hit subscribe, like, notify, share it with other people. We'd always love to have you as a Patreon partner or sponsor. And if you don't have a church to go to, we'd love to have you at Community Faith Church, 10 o'clock on Sundays, Wednesdays, 6:30. We'd love to have you. And we're at coftv.com. You can watch us there as well. Our embedded viewer. You can get links. You can get address. You can get a hold of us. We'd love to have you out at Community Faith Church. Ladies, thank you so much. You guys got any closing comments? We're just getting started.
Oh, yeah.
We're just getting started. Lucas, you got anything? Guys, thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you back for part 2 of Micah Live Humbly. We're here on the dock with Pastor Troy. We'll see you soon.